you're wanting to get a little bit more into yoga philosophy, into your yoga practice, and you have heard about the yamas. So these are the sort of do's and don'ts of yoga practice, and they go beyond just the physical. It's about how we live our life. So I'm Megan Bradley and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, my aim is to empower, inspire and connect women to their bodies and to their minds to hopefully make you feel a lot more confident and empowered in everything to do with your life. So we are going to continue looking at the sort of yamas of yoga. So breaking down yoga philosophy, which for me was kind of the most convoluted and difficult part of my yoga teacher training. So we've looked at ahimsa, satya, which are sort of non-harming and non-stealing. And today we're going to be looking at Brahmacharya. This was kind of my least favorite, or sort of like I really put the brakes on or the guns on when I was in yoga teacher training. So Brahmacharya means abstinence or non-distraction. So as soon as I heard the word abstinence, for me, it really just, I was like, oh, this is going to be really boring. And I think my biggest issue with yoga philosophy when I started delving into it is I just found it really difficult to read it in a modern way. So I was like, fair enough. This was written, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago. Well done, Patanjali, for putting it all together. But, what Patanjali was maybe writing about and what my life is like now, they didn't really mesh together. So, broken into English, Brahmacharya basically means celibacy, and that's what I took it to mean in my yoga teacher training. So when I did my exam and when we talked about it in our classes, that is really how I sort of understood it. And like I said, it just really didn't sit with me in this sort of modern contextualized world. So, I'm not saying, and those who are just logging on, I'm not saying that, I'm a sex maniac or anything, but for me hearing, okay, this means complete celibacy, I was like, well, that's just not the modern life that, myself or anyone else is really living as. And I think for me as a yoga teacher wanting to talk about yoga philosophy, it really didn't make sense for me to be telling people that they shouldn't be having sex. So yeah, I struggled with it at the beginning. But now reading more about it, it makes a lot more sense to me. And it really isn't what Patanjali was getting at back then as well. So charya, so the ending of Brahmacharya, means full dedication, focus, or attention, which I think we all can say that, yes, that's a good thing to have that full focus, full dedication, and full attention. And I think before we dive into looking at the depths of Brahmacharya, I think we all need to take a moment and nod in agreement that there is distraction around us absolutely everywhere. And I would say it's a problem for everyone. It's the modern world that we live in. There is loads of distractions around me at the moment, especially if now, you're used to working away from home and now you're having to work at home. Your distractions are through the roof. You've got your family, you've got your pets, you've got different things going on, even as simple as like the washing up staring you in the face. That's going to be a distraction. An interesting thing to keep in mind is that according to research, our attention span is decreasing every single year. So it's decreased massively in the last 15 years. I wonder what's been invented in the last 15 years that's made it decrease. It's obviously social media and the internet and our easily access to that. So in the year 2000, our attention span was around 12 seconds. In 2015, a study showed that it had dropped to 8.25 seconds. And 5 years on, I reckon we're sort of below 8, maybe even heading into 7. So scientists reckon that our attention span is actually less than a goldfish right now, which is really sad and slightly embarrassing as the human race. We struggle to focus on a task for more than 8 seconds, where a goldfish can kind of stay focused for about 9 seconds. So even just understanding that fact, thinking about Brahmacharya is super important, because we all, I think, would want to have longer attention spans than a goldfish. So Patanjali outlines this abstinence in sutras, and he's not just talking about the abstinence of sex, he's talking about the abstinence of these distractions. Hey Lou! So in my first time looking into this Yama, like I said at the beginning, I really wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in telling people that they couldn't have sex, which is what I'd sort of took it as. And I really saw this Yama as a massive buzzkill. I was like, well, I like these distractions. I like to live my life like this. And I didn't want to live my life without sensory excitement or entertainment. I think that's more to do with me as a person than necessarily me not liking that Yama. So it definitely took a while to understand the true meaning of this Yama, and obviously it's going to take years and years to understand it further. Um, and yeah, this total abstinence is not what Patanjali was talking about. However, Taoist and Hindu philosophy describes sex as an integral part of healing energy. Okay, so they're by no means saying that we shouldn't be having sex at all. So in case you were worried that I was going to start banging on about all of you needing to stop having sex, I'm not. But Iyengar said a really great quote that said, sexual energy is the most basic expression of force. So this energy that kind of exists in all of us. And it's immensely powerful. It is essentially the control, it's essential to control and channel this energy, okay? So to give it a direction. And no way should we despise this energy, okay? Think about some of these words. It's powerful. It's essential. We need to control it. We shouldn't despise it. And actually that we should respect and esteem this sexual energy. This is super important, okay? This is where the shift really started for me. And it's that sex should not be something to embarrassed about, to lie about, or to sneak around about. And this is so important. I'll repeat it again. Sex is something that should not be lied about, should not be embarrassed about, and we should not lie or sneak around about it. So those who've just kind of tuned in, I am talking about Brahmacharya. I'm going to be talking a lot about sex, but like spinning what we sort of understand sex to be on its head. So remember, it should be respected. It should be intimate. It should be cherished. This is a big one. And we all need to think about probably different times that we've had sex in our life. Sometimes not a comfortable thing to do. And some of us aren't really going to want to go there. Okay. You know, maybe you haven't had these experiences, and if that's true, that's amazing. But sort of drunken one-night stands, affairs, quickies, you know, all of these kind of sexual experiences, they're often done in a place that isn't respected. They're often done in a way that's not respectful of your body, and they're often done in quite disgusting places and leave you feeling filled with shame. Which again, if we just think about what I just talked about, which Brahmacharya is saying, what the Hindus and the Taoists are saying is that these things don't represent what we should have as our sexual energy. So these sexual encounters are barely thought about in leading up to, and they're almost forgotten about immediately after. We try to push them away. And this isn't how it should be. So what if we grew up, and I really want you to think about this, what if we grew up learning about how powerful, how wonderful, and how much of an art sex could be? Rather than being in school being told that we shouldn't have sex, that we're going to get pregnant if we even look at a sperm, that, you know, we need to be abstinent as long as we can. If our teachers, if our leaders, if our parents really told us about how incredible sex is and how we can really learn to channel and make it powerful and make it really connect, then maybe the way we treat ourselves and the way we have treated others in sexual encounters would be totally different. Okay, so how would this shift our culture as, you know, as a whole, especially Western culture? Okay, Western culture is super guilty of sort of putting sex under this like dirty blanket that nobody really wants to talk about. You know, everybody's doing it. Everybody wants to do it, but we're not going to talk about it. Okay, a bunch of prudes. So how would it change the way that women and men were treated when it came to sex before, during, and after? If it was something that was respected, cherished, if something that was seen as esteemed and powerful. So, you know, I would love my children, if I have them, to grow up learning about the beauty of sex rather than the shame. The beauty of sex rather than the shame. Okay. If you think about a lot of those sexual experiences, there's loads of shame powered with it. I know for myself, loads and loads and loads. Okay. It's really hard to change these taboos and these ways of thinking in the Western world. It just is. Okay. We look at sex in a very different way to a lot of different places in the rest of the world. And don't get me wrong, there are definitely some places in the world that are far more prudish, far more in the dark ages, far more unbalanced than the West. But we could definitely do a lot to progress in this area. Okay, so we could be a lot more progressive is all I'm trying to say. So one of my favorite examples of this is what we refer to our genitalia as, okay? And I want you to try to remember this, even write it down, because it's an amazing sort of bit of language factoids to work with. So penis, okay? Penis, say it with me, guys, penis. In Sanskrit, I mean, I don't say penis a lot, let me be honest, I'm a gay woman, but penis, in Sanskrit, this is called a lingam, okay? And it's a symbol of potential. It's a symbol of energy. If you look back, you know, when you studied art in school or you've been to galleries, there are penises everywhere. There are boobs everywhere. Like you know, the human form is everywhere, and not in a shameful way in any way. In the West, the names for some of these, the names for penis are ridiculous. I'm just going to read a few of them. Hopefully Instagram and Facebook won't block me. But we use things like willy, knob, dick, prick, assault rifle. I mean, I've only named probably about 4 or 5, but the list is huge. And then if we talk about the vagina or the womb, okay? In Sanskrit, this is called the yoni. Oh, I love the word yoni. I think it's beautiful. And it's a symbol of the creative goddess Shakti, okay? So if you're a woman watching, or if you're a man watching, remember that word yoni. You can research it. There's loads of different styles of yoga and meditation about the yoni, but like it is sacred, like massively. Without the yoni, like we don't have the human race. In the West, the names for vagina, the names for, you know, what we refer to as a vagina are just, they're shocking, and they're also really, really degrading and disgusting. I'm not going to obviously name them all here, but, you know, things like fanny flaps and the C word and it makes me feel really horrible even saying them, like gash, minge, like, and you know, there are so many, and lots of them are super derogatory. I mean, all the ones that I just said are super derogatory. And I just want you to think about, like, in Sanskrit, in the East, they have lingam and they have yoni. Both of these words super, super powerful, super, super respectful. And then in the West, we just use all of this slang that's super derogatory. And even like from a child's age, hearing these words and not being able to say vagina, not being able to say penis, you're already filled with shame about something that is part of your body, something that is incredible, but you're already scared of it. So that is probably the start of the serious problem for us, and that linking to Brahmacharya, in that if we can't respect sex, if we can't respect our sexual organs, then how are we ever going to ever live a life that's Brahmacharya? How are we ever going to not be distracted in a negative way from these things? So how can we then link that to sexual acts? Is that we're just never going to respect sex if we can't even respect the parts of our body that are included in sex. Okay, so if we look at tantric yoga and we look at how it could be linked into our life, tantra, yes, it's about sex, but it's also about promoting healing and removing the blocks and creating a greater connection, okay? And again, this idea of this sexual act being really respected and really emotional and really important. So Brahmacharya is more about being able to control those sexual desires and harness them for greater pleasure and greater respect at the right time and when you're in control. Okay, so respect at the right time and when you are in control. These are massive. So not to be distracted by these sexual urges as well. So to respect yourself enough that if you have a sexual urge and it is not the right time and you need to be doing something else, then you respect yourself enough to not be distracted by them. And that's where I think that line of what I first understood Brahmacharya to mean complete celibacy, well, that's not what it means. It means being in control of those sexual urges. Okay, so I've talked a lot about sex, about willies, about, I shouldn't say willy, about penises. let's move beyond just sexual distraction and let's head into the sphere of something more modern and something quite current, and that being our social media and the internet. So if anybody has watched The Social Dilemma recently, this will make 100% sense, but I don't think you need to be, have seen that documentary, or you must be living under a rock if you don't understand kind of the negative effects that social media and the internet can have on us. So I mean, first of all, take a breath. It's all going to be okay. It doesn't matter if you don't do all of these things. I know what I'm talking about every week can be quite heavy, but it's about taking small steps towards all of these things. So I think most people can wholeheartedly admit that they have some level of addiction to their phones. I said to myself that I was going to start to control my usage of my phone. I need to put it away in a safe with a lock, a key or something, because it's really, really bad for me. So the statistics of average time spent on our phones is rising every day. And with this pandemic, it's going to be through the roof, just because everybody's on Zoom, everybody's on their phones, because we're locked up in our house, quite literally. So each day, new apps, new filters, new upgrades are making it harder and harder for us to become phone independent. Okay. Our phones are making it so that we need to live with them rather than without them. So I talked about attention spans at the beginning. We now have an attention span less of a goldfish. And the internet has really started to drain our attention spans, dropping as low as 7 or 8 seconds. We know a goldfish is 9-second attention span. So this is decreasing by 88% a year. So the author of Greed, Sex, Intention, Hannah Whittingham, went on a total digital detox for a week. Okay. And a lot of what I'm talking about is based on her book. And she found out a few realizations. I've never done a total digital detox. It's really difficult when you run a business and people are constantly speaking to you on your phones. But I think maybe it'd be interesting if I hired somebody to just be in charge of those socials and I took a week off. So Hannah did this. And what she realized, not having her phone, not having the internet on, is that there's a shit ton of time in a day. Okay. So she when you're not spending literally hours scrolling your phone, and then also scrolling your phone, trying to get on a task, being distracted, going back on your phone, which drains your day of time. When you're not doing that all the time, you're suddenly left with a lot more time to do other things. Okay. We could probably compress the amount of time it takes to do something massively if we just weren't on our phone and weren't doing anything. Justine, I'm glad I'll have it filmed and I'll put it up and you can catch up. So, if we compressed what we did by not being distracted, we could probably get the work that we need done. I know sometimes I could probably get it done in 2 hours, and then you've got the rest of the day to yourself. So that's number one, shit ton of time in the day if we weren't distracted by our phones. The other one is that people don't stick to plans. This is huge. I remember when I was a kid, you had to make plans and you had to show up at a spot, meeting at a corner where 2 streets come together, and you had to show up because there was no way. Where now people are flaky, people cancel like crazy. So, the phones, having mobile phones has really, really affected this. Okay. You had to go knock on someone's door. That doesn't really exist anymore. So, and the third thing that she realized is without our phones and the internet, you're really the last one to find out information. Okay. News does not travel the way it used to. Twitter, Facebook, all of the digital means of the news means that people find things out literally within seconds of them happening. So things move on as quickly as you find out about them. News comes and goes. Without a phone and the internet, you're just simply left behind. Okay. So if we need our phones, then really we need to put some rules in place. And I think we all know that we probably need to put some rules in place. One of the best things that I've ever sort of seen is Harriet, my wife, came up with this idea of something called the Sunday phone. And what she did is she bought a brick phone that literally was push the numbers to text something. And every Sunday she would use this phone. Okay. And it was, basically meant that she was not distracted by anything else on that day. The key people who she loved and cared about, who if there was an emergency could get in contact with her, had the number of that sort of Sunday phone. And then she put her other phone away. And that was a really amazing kind of rule that she put in place, which meant that on Sundays, she was loads more connected and loads more kind of present in her day to day. And it was that simple, just a little block phone that she put a SIM card in, and then every Sunday she would use that. Um, and really, with using that Sunday phone, she was way more present, way more attentive, and really was able to shut off and focus. So the different tactics that I've seen people do is turning the color off on their phone so it's less appealing, less appetizing, and it curbs our attention towards the screen. You can set up restrictions on your phone that kind of do a block so that once you've used it for a certain amount of time, it says your time limit is up. I've tried using that one and I just click like the cancel or ignore. Doesn't really work for me, but it might work for you. You can turn off your notifications. This is a big one for me. So turning off my notifications, it just means that I'm not seeing that flick come up on my screen that's just taking my attention over. And these notifications, these push notifications are designed to keep you connected to your phone. So that's a big one. Something that I've decided to do recently is if I put up a post, I turn off my notifications and then I have like 2 sort of times, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, where I'll sit down and I'll reply to my DMs and I'll reply to my Insta messages, etc. But I'm not doing it as they come in and replying to those notifications as they come in. Because this is an addiction. Like the truth of the matter is it's an addiction. And that's what Brahmacharya is saying is like, how do we get control of our brains, of what we do over this addiction? So the other thing is somehow it's become socially acceptable to just be on your phone texting or looking at Instagram when you're out with people. If you look at a group of teenagers now, they'll all be on their phones texting or like taking pictures or doing selfies or doing Insta stories while they're in a group of people. Like I remember going out with my parents and still going out with my parents. If I get my phone out, they get well cross with me because they see it as super rude. But you know, the younger the person, the less kind of rude it is. That's just the normal kind of life about it. If we replaced our phone with another addictive thing, let's say cocaine or cigarettes or I don't know, another bad thing that people could be addicted to, if we were just doing that in public, it would never be socially acceptable. Like people would be losing their minds. Also, you'd get arrested, but somehow using our phones in this way has become super, super acceptable. Okay, so when we practice yoga, we're able to start to analyze and think about our daily routines and the way that we behave, okay? Away from our phones and away from our notifications, perhaps then we can start to sense these addictions. And that's what's so amazing about a yoga practice. Now we've just headed into, if you're in the UK, we've just headed into lockdown 2.0. So if you're someone who loves going to your yoga studio to practice your yoga, suddenly you don't have that anymore. And I know that heaps and heaps of people are struggling to do at home yoga practice or gym practice or workouts because they're just distracted by everything that's at their house. I'm going to be writing a blog. I'm going to be putting out a blog tomorrow that's all about like tackling this and being able to work out still at home. But one of those things is, you know, just try to put the phone away, try to create a space that you can focus on. So that our yoga practice allows us to start to practice Brahmacharya. And it really is. It's about starting to work on the mind. We're terrified of being bored. We can't have no stimulation. And this has really killed a lot of creative thinking, especially in children. And this is really obvious when I teach a really slow yoga class. So in a fast vinyasa class, you know, you're moving from pose to pose to pose to pose. But if you go into a slower class, be it yin, be it gravity yoga, people struggle massively. Their brains are going, and they want me to keep talking, which I'm really bad at not doing. But yeah, they really struggle. They're fidgeting all over. As soon as the poses slow down, you know, that fidgeting begins and the atmosphere really becomes discomfort. And it's not so much a physical discomfort, but it's a real mental discomfort. We struggle to be still or silent, and we struggle in this silence. I went for lunch with my father-in-law the other day, and he's a super like chill man. He's super like confident, and he's just really comfortable. And there would be moments of silence, and I just felt the need to like insert myself into every bit of silence and talk, where actually it probably would have been fine if we just sat in silence for a minute and just contemplated what was going on. But my sort of mind was like, I must fill, when actually I probably didn't need to. Our reflex of hand to phone has just been completely numbed. We just, every time we feel a sense of boredom, we pick up that phone. And our phone replace that boredom. They're like a dopamine fix that means, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not bored. I'm not this. So next time you feel that flicker of your hand to go get your phone, I want you to stop. Okay, whether you're in line at the grocery store, whether you're waiting for a bus, whether you're just sitting on your sofa, I want you to just see if you can leave your phone and just see how many times you get that sensation to pick up your phone, and see if maybe you can wait 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to happen if you don't pick up your phone. So try to allow yourself to be with your thoughts in that moment rather than having that instinct to pick up the phone. So when you go to practice yoga and you're thinking about Brahmacharya, I want you to focus on the things that you're distracted by in your life and see if there's something that's kind of adding to your life or if there's something that's being more of a hindrance, okay? So in your yoga practice, is the music adding to your practice or is it a hindrance? Okay. If the teacher's chosen a bit of music, is it making you annoyed? Or if you've chosen the bit of music, are you just constantly thinking, oh, that's not the right song. That's not the right song. Oh, I need to change that. Oh, that's too fast. That's too slow. Your leggings. I know it sounds really silly, but are your leggings falling down? Are they driving you crazy? Spending the money on a good pair of leggings is the one. And it's really going to help with Brahmacharya because you're not going to be distracted. Your mat or your towel. Okay, that's another thing I would say, really invest in a good mat or a good non-slip towel. It'll help with those distractions. Your hair, okay, if your hair is falling all over the place, make sure you've got all this stuff set up so that you're putting yourself in a place where you're going to do really well versus where you're just going to be failing because you're just going to be constantly distracted. So I like to practice with music because it helps me, but I've got a really clear understanding of what kind of music I want to listen to. It's generally a bit like house. It doesn't really have loads of lyrics. It's not something like Jack Johnson, Banana Pancakes, because that has like university connotations, and I don't necessarily want to go there. So I choose something that's kind of more bassy and has a beat behind it versus something that's lyrical, but you might be totally different. I wear leggings, and I'm really specific about the leggings I wear. They must be high-waisted, they must be tight around my belly, and they must not roll down. I don't like a 3/4 length because I've got big calves and it cuts into them. So I like a long legging with a high waist. That's what I like. I practice on suede non-slip mats. I don't use towels anymore. I've invested in some really good mats, and that really helps me. And I like to practice if I'm in a yoga class, I like to practice at the front. And that is not because I want to show off. It's because I don't want to be distracted by others. And then I can keep my comparison at bay. So, these sort of things I've realized over kind of the last 10 years of practicing yoga, that for me to practice more Brahmacharya, for me to be less distracted, I need to put myself in a place where I'm going to be less distracted. So it's taken me years to work out these decisions, but they're decisions that work for me, and the intention behind them works for me as well. So perhaps we need to all start analyzing the things that we do, the possessions in our lives, in a more Brahmacharya way. So what I want you to do is just kind of look around your room right now and just see what is by you that's a distraction. And is it a good distraction or is it a negative distraction? Having a massive bottle of water, well, that's a good distraction, especially from someone like myself who doesn't drink enough water. It's there to remind me that I need to drink. Having a box of chocolates beside me is maybe not a great distraction because I eat way too much chocolate and I need to have less of it. So what I want you to take away from this Yama Brahmacharya is that it doesn't mean celibacy in that way. It's about respecting this sexual energy. It's about seeing it as something that's powerful, and it's about us gaining power over it. It's about not treating our bodies or the act of sex as something to be ashamed about. And it's about kind of looking at the way we use social media, the way we use the internet, the way we use our phones in a way that isn't constantly distracting us. So Brahmacharya is really about harnessing our physical energy, our emotional energy, our mental energy, and like harnessing it in a way that we can kind of be the most powerful, most present, most attuned, and, most happy selves. So I hope that all made sense.